Hello everybody, my name is Rock Sanders, and today we are going to be removing the rear wheel on my 2015 CBR600RR, and we're also going to be replacing the rear brake pads as well. So this can be like a little 2-in-1 type of video for you guys today. It's a beautiful day outside, nice and sunny, not too hot here in Texas. I hope all y'all are staying safe and trying to find something to do during quarantine. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started, I guess. I don't really have much else to say. So a few things that you are going to need. You're going to need some type of rear stand. I just use a rear swing arm stand. I got this from Harbor Freight. It cost me a little under 40 bucks. I think it was like $38 plus some change. You're also going to need some brake pads. I saw some really good reviews on these guys, so I decided to pick them up. I personally don't know, from like personal experience how great they are, but I'm gonna trust other people on that one. You're gonna need some type of brake compressor. This is gonna be to compress the calipers. If you don't have something like that, honestly, you can use a big old wrench. This is kind of frowned upon, and I'll kind of explain a little bit later why it's frowned upon. You're gonna need an 8mm socket wrench in order to take off the brake pads. You're going to need a torque wrench. That's going to be for our axle. You're going to need a 32mm socket to take the rear axle off. When you are replacing the axle, I highly recommend to also replace the grease that's in there. You already have it off, you might as well do it. This cost me $11.49, so like $12 for a whole jug of it. Picked it up at Cycle Gear as long as the brake pads. You're also gonna want some type of brake lubricant. I got this at AutoZone. It was $1.50. Also the torque wrench from AutoZone. I just did a loaner. I didn't buy it. I have no need to buy it. And the oil is for later. I'm gonna be doing a separate video on an oil change on this bike. So that's about all the tools you're gonna need that I'm aware of right now. If I think of any later, I'll go ahead and add those in as well. So to get started, you're gonna want to find a nice flat place. I'm in my garage here, so it's pretty flat. Sorry, my neighbors are mowing their lawn, so if y'all hear that, I do apologize. I can't really stop them on that thing. So first step is you're gonna want to go ahead and put your bike on the stand. So the next step is we're going to need to get our rear wheel off. So the way I recommend doing that is first you're going to want to go ahead and mark your chain and your sprocket just to make sure you get it put back where it needs to go. Easiest way to do that, simply just take a Sharpie. Pretty simple. You're going to want to find somewhere you want to mark. I did have a Sharpie marked on here earlier. Can't find it. We're just gonna make a new one. No big deal. So, just gonna pick a spot. I'm gonna pick right here. Just do an itty bitty mark. I like to do it in between to where the teeth are at, so I actually know where it's gonna go. Might need to clean that up a little bit. And I will be doing a video on how to replace the chain and sprocket. Those just haven't came in the mail yet, so be expecting that. We're gonna go ahead and mark it right there. There we go. Cool. And that's just to keep the even wear on the chain and the sprocket. They do wear together, so you kind of want to make sure you put them back in place. So now that that's done, we're gonna go ahead and start taking off the rear wheel. You're gonna take your 32mm socket. It's gonna fit right on that nut. I am using an impact. It's not required to use an impact. Some people might not like that I'm using an impact, but it's my bike. Kind of do what I want. And you're just gonna take it off. Simple as that. Cool. So we'll go ahead and take that nut off. Face it down. You are gonna have a little washer. Make sure you kind of put that the same way. So it came off like that, not like that, just like that. Set them on the ground. Now what you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to go ahead and put this axle. You kind of want to hit it through. Happens. All right, and it pretty much just came right. Just gotta hit it a few times. Come around the other side, and this thing is full of grease, so it's gonna get really nasty. And pull it through. Be careful, the wheel will fall down once you pull the axle out. So I'd recommend supporting it. I usually just use my foot or my knee or something like that. Because you don't want it to just fall and kind of, you just don't want it to fall down. One thing though, your chain off before you drop the wheel. God man, I'm getting grease everywhere. Probably should have worn gloves. That might have been a good idea, but oh well. I'm a technician, like to get dirty, so it really doesn't bother me. So go ahead, take the axle out. Make sure you support the bottom, hold the top. And it should just slide right out. If you have never done this to your bike, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I recently, like I said, got the rear wheel changed, so I put fresh grease and everything in there. So it's just going to slide right out just like that. Okay, you don't want to get it dirty. It really doesn't matter because I like to clean it before I put the grease on there. So that's kind of, I just set it to the side. Next, you're going to go ahead and pop your chain off. You might have to push the wheel forward just a little bit. Kind of get that chain. There we go. Alright, we're just going to kind of loop it right there for now. And then you should just be able to kind of wiggle it back. Now, your brakes are going to be still connected to your wheel right there. So let me spin y'all around real quick. So, like I said, it is going to be connected to your rotor still, so you just got to kind of be careful. The way I'd recommend taking out this caliper from the wheel is you kind of want to take them out kind of at the same time. So we're going to pull the wheel back. This has a little channel that it kind of slides into, so you just kind of want to get it out of that channel, so you're going to have to come back and then go up. So we're going to pull it back. Oh, that's okay. We're going to pull it back, and it is a little bit weird, a little difficult to get off, I'm not going to lie. But this takes a little bit. There we go. Alright, cool. So we got the wheel off. So that concludes the first part on how to get the rear wheel off. To put it back on, I'm going to do that at the end of the video, so you'll kind of have an idea on how to do that as well. A couple things that you should know about is there's this little guy. Honestly, I don't know what this is called. I was just going to call it an axle washer. It does stick in right here where your bearings are at. So don't lose these, they are very important. You can set them to the side, that's what I normally do, so I don't lose them. There's going to be one on each side, which I believe is what fell earlier. Yep, got it right there. Okay. And we're just going to set this wheel off to the side. Alright guys, so now that we have the wheel off, next we're going to work on getting the brake pads out and replacing the brake pads, just as that. These you can take out. I don't know exactly what these are called, but these are what hold the axle in place whenever you adjust the spring tension, not spring tension, sorry, the chain tension. You can take those out because your locking nut stays in place, you don't have to worry about that. They're just being really loud mowing their grass today, huh? I picked the perfect time, didn't I? Cool. Alright, so taking off the brake pads. Let me bring y'all a little bit closer so y'all can get a little better view of this. Alright, I hope y'all can see that okay. Might bring you back a little bit. Okay? So, you want to be very careful when messing with your brakes. Mainly because your brake lines, you don't want to put any extra stress on them. So you don't want to hang it off to the side. Easiest place to put this guy. He actually likes to stay in place. Alright, I'm going to slide him out just like that. This is the groove I was talking about right there. This guy just kind of sits in there. Okay. Just going to set him on the side like that. Probably not the best place for it, but it works. So, in order to take the brake pads off, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to loosen up this 8mm bolt. And the brake pads literally should just kind of clip out. I don't know how to describe it. They almost fall out, but it's not really like that. So let me get my tool and we'll get that started, okay? Got my 8mm socket. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna go ahead and take off this nut right there. Not nut, bolt, sorry. Just like that. Like I said, be careful not to drop this. You don't want to put any extra stress on your brake lines. You could risk breaking them. They could start leaking, and having leaking brakes is not a good sign. Not a good sign. Alrighty, cool. Move it all over a little bit so y'all can see this. Alright. So, what we're going to do is we're going to take this off. Might take a little bit of wiggling. It's in there pretty tight. Just like that. Don't lose that. You're going to need it. Set it to the side. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pop out these brake pads. See how I said they kind of literally just fall out? I don't know how well you can see that, but these guys are worn down pretty good. Pretty good. It probably had a little bit of life left, but this is the one I'm worried about. It's the other one that's even worse, which made me want to replace these. Oh, okay. And that one just fell out just like that. Perfect. This guy is the one I'm worried about. This dude he's gone. He is, all of his life has been put to good use. So I saw this one and I was like, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and change that out. He's pretty close to being metal on metal. I didn't want to have to buy a new brake rotor because those get expensive very quick. So went ahead and changed that out. These guys. Alright, so these little metal clips, you're going to want to keep these. I don't know if the new package comes with new ones, so don't break these because you might need them. So we're going to go ahead and open up the other package, see if they need them. We're going to go ahead and open up our brake pads and see what they come with. Hopefully they do come with new ones because it's always a good idea to kind of replace things as you're going along, especially if you're already there. You might as well just do it. So let's see what we get. Let's go ahead and open her up. Also, do not get any grease on your brake pads. I don't know about y'all, but I like to stop. So I'm actually going to go kind of clean my hands to make sure I don't get them on the brake pads themselves. So good thing we did save those parts because the new brake pads did not come with them. But man, look at the difference. Those look nice and good, and these guns are just gone. They are done for the day. Oh yeah. So, double check this real quick. Alright, cool. So, it looks like we're gonna want to take this guy off. Basically what that does is, that's an area for the this little metal guy. That's a good place for your caliper. That's where it's actually gonna press on it. I believe you're gonna need to replace this dude. Yeah, he just kind of pops right off. And we'll just take him off. Try not to bend it, break it, or anything like that. So kind of come at it at all sides. Just kind of take him off. just like that. There we go. And yes, so that's just so your caliper has a place to press upon, so that way it's not pressing directly on your brake pads. There's reasons for it, honestly. I can't think of them right now, but you understand what I'm saying. Just make sure you keep these parts. Do not throw them away. Do not lose them. You're going to need them. Alright, so the next step we're going to do today is we're going to go ahead and compress the caliper. That way we can fit our new brake pads in there. So easiest way to do that is to have some type of, caliper compressor. If you don't have one of these guys, the cheap way of doing it is you can honestly use a large pair of pliers. It is pretty frowned upon, to be honest, because what it does is it unevenly compresses the caliper, and that can lead to it leaking or breaking. And calipers are, I don't necessarily know 100% for the bikes. I'm more of a car guy myself, but I do know that calipers are not very cheap, and they're not very fun to replace for your wallet and for your time, because you've seen all these steps we had to do. You're going to have to just, that's one more step, then you got to breathe the brakes, and no one really wants to do that. So I have this little guy, little simple compressor. So what we're going to do, pretty simple honestly. We're just going to take him, going to feed him in here. And this one's a little tight because this one is for a car, it's not for a motorcycle, but oh shoot, that was a wasp. I think we can make it work. So let's see what we got. Okay. Alright, you know what? Looks like we're just going to use the plier trick because that compressor will not fit. So I'll show you how to do it this way. Pretty simple. If we can find a good spot. Make that work. Just be very careful not to damage your speed sensor. If you damage that, that's not a good time. So we're going to come at it from the bottom, maybe. Okay, not the bottom. It's like we are going to have to come across it from the top. Okay, so that's really close to the sensor. I really don't feel comfortable doing that. See if we can get in there with this dude without touching the speed sensor. So like I said, that is not something you want to damage. And it's not something, if you damage it, you can just kind of, bypass. This bike does have ABS, so it does use the speed sensors to judge, how fast the front wheel versus the rear wheel. So it looks like you can just unclip it from here and kind of gets it out of the way of where we're going to be compressing it at. One thing I do want to do is put some type of towel here so I'm not scratching the face. Okay. Like that. Take these. And like I said, be very careful not to damage your speed sensor. And you're simply just going to slowly just compress it. It's really not that hard. These are channel locks pretty well. You can adjust them. So I had them on the highest or the widest setting, so we're going to go a little bit smaller. Compress it just a little bit more. And the reason why I do a little bit at a time is so you're not putting so much pressure on one side, because if you just go at it, you have a high risk of breaking it, and I don't want to be responsible for that, and I don't want y'all to be responsible for that. So just slowly kind of come at it. Also be aware, I actually didn't think of this, since you are compressing this, it is going to push the fluid back into the reservoir. So if you see it leaking, just get a towel and just try not to make a mess. It's really not going to hurt anything if it leaks, but just try not to make a mess, really. So just be aware. It can come out of the reservoir if it's topped off whenever you're doing this. But yeah, we're going to continue. I believe I'm getting a phone call right now. And you're going to compress it to where it's about flat. Just about flat. Almost there. Alright, cool. I'll show y'all what I mean. So I went ahead and compressed it, and if you can see how it is laying flat almost exactly. That's about where you want it. Like I said, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to risk breaking it. And you can always compress it more if you really need to. But we'll see whenever we start to put the brake pads on and see what happens, alright? Check my phone real quick. It's just a computer call. So, now that we got our rotor compressed, we got our brake pads ready, we can go ahead and start reassembling everything. Alright guys, welcome back. So, what we're going to do is we're going to get our brake pads ready to reinstall onto the bike. Pretty simple to do, honestly. Like I said, try not to touch the pad itself. That's because any grease that you get on there is just going to diminish it. It'll make it wear down faster, and you also won't have as much braking power. Don't know if it'll be noticeable, but it will affect your braking. So just please do not touch the pad itself. You can touch all around it, just don't touch it itself, okay? Same thing goes for the rotor. Don't touch the rotor if you can avoid it, especially with any type of grease or anything like that. Even just sweat or anything on your hands will affect it. So those little parts that I told us to save earlier, we're going to be putting those on our new brake pads, okay? So we have two separate ones, obviously one for each pad. Let me grab these real quick. So as you can see, we got two separate ones. They look very different. There is a reason for this. So, as you can see, one of them is more circular and one is the shape of a U shape, okay? In order to determine which side these go on, you're going to want to line them up to where both the bolt holes are facing each other and the metal is on the outside, okay? You want the metal on the outside. If you look, this one has a pretty good, I don't know if you can see that very well. This one has a pretty good circle, and that's where the caliper is pressing on it. So this is going to be the caliper side, and this is going to be the other side, okay? You see how this one has a U shape on it? And if you look at the caliper, it has a U shape on it as well. You're just going to match those up, okay? So we're going to take our two pieces. We're going to find which one. Okay, so that one doesn't work. This one here is perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and just clip it on there, line up the hole, and just literally just kind of clips on there. I would recommend replacing these if you want to. Personally, I just didn't think of it ahead of time. I'm gonna be honest. I would have bought new ones. I kind of thought they would come with the brake pads, but they didn't. So I am just going to be reusing them. So let's set it on there just like that, and we're going to do the same thing for the other one. Okay, we're going to take this, flip it around the back, make sure you have the metal on the outside. If I can get this on there we go. And it just kind of clips on there. These ones don't clip as well because, like I said, they are the older ones. If you get newer ones, they're going to clip on there really good. So it just kind of clips on there. Boom. And boom. Just like that. Like that. Okay. So, now that we got that clipped on there, these are almost ready to be reinstalled. One more thing I would highly recommend is when you go to AutoZone to get your torque wrench, or if you have one already, I'd also recommend getting some type of brake lubricant. Basically what this does is it's going to go anywhere that there is metal to metal contact. This is going to help prevent any extra wear and any extra, I guess technically heat, but mostly just the wear. This stuff, it's very important that you only put it on anything that's metal, okay? If you get a little bit extra on the pad, on the back side, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just kind of not recommended. There's really no reason. Oh, it also helps with noise as well. Sorry, I forgot to state that as well. So you're going to want to put it on this metal part right here. And also on the other one right there. On just the metal. Don't put it on the pad if you can avoid it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of clean it off a little bit. I'm just going to take my shop towel that I had earlier. Remember to avoid touching the pad itself. So we're just going to kind of wipe it off a little bit, get it somewhat cleaner. It doesn't need to be shiny clean, it really doesn't. I'm just doing this just because. So just gonna wipe it off a little bit. Same thing for the other side. Now wipe it off a little bit. It's a little kind of dirty, huh? Okay. So I went ahead and wiped it off. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of give it a nice little wiping, get it kind of cleaner than it was. Cool. And most likely what that stuff was, you know, the lubricant anyway. So if there's some on there, it's really not going to hurt anything. So to put this stuff on there, I'd recommend using some type of brush. I don't have a brush, so we're going to kind of figure out another way to do it. Honestly, I'm probably just going to use my finger. I don't really care about getting dirty. It's up to you as well. Like I said, I'd recommend a brush. You can use your finger. Just whatever you want to do, okay? So we're going to go ahead and crack this guy open. Alright, and the important thing about this is you don't need too much, to be honest. This one's blue. That's pretty cool. You don't need a lot. You don't want to put too much where it's going to start going everywhere you don't want it to be. You just need enough to do a nice thin layer. That's really all you need. So we're going to take our brake pads. Just going to squeeze a nice little bit on there. Okay, something like that. And what we're going to do, I'm going to try and clean my finger off a little bit. Just going to take it and just, like I said, you just need a nice little thin layer on there. Try not to get it on the back of the brake pad. If you do, it's not the end of the world. Just try and avoid it. And you just want to cover the metal surfaces, because that's where it's going to be metal to metal contact. You're trying to avoid any sound and any extra wear. Alright, so we got a nice little thin layer on there. You don't, like I said, do not put too much on there. Okay? So a nice thin layer on one. I'm gonna come around to the other one. Do the same exact thing. Just put a little bit on there. You can eyeball it. There's no specific amount. If there is, I don't have the time to go look it up, so I'm just gonna do a little bit like that. Same thing. Use your finger, rub it on there. Try not to get any on the brake pad. Do not touch the front of the brake pad. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, just got a nice little layer on there, so this one's good to go as well. I like that blue, it looks pretty nice. Cool. So, just like that. Now that you put your lubricant on the brake pads, these are basically ready to go. They're basically ready to be installed. So we're going to go ahead and start with the install. Remember what I said, that there's two separate sides? One's a circle and one's a U. So the circle side is going to go on the piston side. The U side is going to go on the back of the caliper, just like that, okay? Also, this little, I guess it's a tab, is what it's going to sit on this little recessed point back there. You'll see it. It's kind of hard to get it on video. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there's this little recessed part, and that's where that little tab is going to sit at. Like I said, you'll be able to see it when you do this yourself. It's kind of hard to get on video, but we're just gonna go with it, okay? So, got my brake pads ready. We're gonna do, circle side is gonna be facing towards the rear. Just gonna set it in there, kind of like that. Okay, just like that. And remember, there's nothing holding these in right now, so you are gonna have to hold them yourself, or they will just come falling out. Okay, so we got one of them in, pretty simple. This other one we're going to put in the same exact way that we did the first one. So it might be a little bit more difficult because you do have to hold one while you're trying to put it in there, but I believe in you. If you've gotten this far, you could definitely do this part. So same thing, we're just going to slide it in there. Make sure you get that tab sitting on top. Could be a little difficult to get it all the way in there. There we go. Okay, just like that, guys. And to make sure you have it in there, if you can hold it by just the rear, like I am right now, I'm just using these 2 fingers, then you have it in there correctly. If they're sitting flat, like they are right now, you have it in there correctly. You will be able to tell if you do not put those in right. They will not sit flush. They will try and just continuously fall out, and you won't be able to hold it, you know, with 1 finger on each pad, okay? So now that you got that in there, I kind of slipped out a little bit. Cool. Now the trick is trying to get that bolt. And take our bolt. I wouldn't recommend putting any grease on this, just because it's going to be sitting directly above the brake pads and above the rotor, and you do not want to get any grease on any of those 2 parts, because I assume you want to stop. So we're just going to slide it in there, get it on the first one. You can let go of that first one, come over to the second one, make sure to line it up. You might have to push up on this right pad in order to slide the bolt through, just because it is going to be putting pressure on it. So just kind of wiggle it around, get it through the second pad, and just like that. Okay, so what I like to do is go ahead and look at it, make sure everything's sitting flush and nice and straight. There's no gaps on the side right here. Everything looks good. We're going to come around to the back. See what I mean? How it is sitting on that part. That's the way you want it to look. Perfect. So we got that good. I could not find any type of torque specs for this 8mm bolt, so I'm gonna assume they want it hand tight, but don't strip it. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and tighten her up. Also, put your ABS back, or your speed sensor, put that wire back in its little holding. We're gonna do that before I forget. It could be a little weird to get in there. There we go. Alright, it just kind of squeezes into a little holding right there. Okay. So we're going to take your 8mm wrench, and you're going to go ahead and tighten her down. And like I said, you want it tight enough, but don't strip it. Oh, come on. Kind of slid out the way a little bit. Kind of hold the pads in place, I guess. They like to move around, it appears. So we're just going to tighten it up. And like I said, you want it tight, but you don't want to strip it. So right there, see how it got really tight? Double check, make sure everything's looking good. Everything looks good. The brake pads will move around a little bit. It's not too big of a deal, just kind of push them back. So like I said, it went tight by hand pretty easily. So what I'm going to do, just give it a little tug. Oh. And as you can see, I popped the brake pad out of place. So I'm going to fix that real quick. Okay, cool. So if that happens to you like it just happened to me, easiest way to fix that is just going to take a flathead, and basically what happened is the inside of the brake pad, it slipped off of that little thing that it was sitting on, like that. It just kind of slipped off. That's okay, it's not the end of the world. Just take your flathead. If you want to push on the bottom of the brake pad to get it over that little lip, then use the flathead to kind of push it to where it sits back on there, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. I kind of did it, but I didn't get it all the way, so doesn't take a lot of pressure. You don't want to crack these brake pads. I'm not sure how easy they would be to crack, but just avoid anything that you can. So you don't want to take any unnecessary steps. So it looks like I got it on there. So this one on the inside right here, that one slipped off as well. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that. So just take your flathead, put it in there, bam. Try and get it back on that little part where it was sitting on, like that. Okay. And it's gonna look a little weird, but remember, we still gotta put the rotor back on and everything. And once you pump the brakes, when the rotor's on there, they're gonna sit nice and flat. So it's not gonna be any damage, okay? So it'll be alright. So make sure you got them on there. Make sure they're not gonna fall off. Looks pretty good, okay? Everything's ready to be put back together. Make sure you have the bolt tightened. Make sure the pads are in there well. Make sure they're not gonna fall out. So the next part is putting the rear wheel back on. That's pretty easy. It's kind of self-explanatory, but I'll go ahead and show you all how to do that. A couple things is the axle that we set aside earlier, this guy right here. Make sure it's clean. Make sure there's no debris on it. Like me, I just set it down on the floor right here. So I got cat hair on it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab a paper towel, wipe it off, put some new grease on there, and it'll be good to go after that. Cool. So I got the paper towel. Just gonna wipe this off. Try and get any debris that's on there. And the reason why you're gonna want to re-grease this. So when I first did my rear tire, probably a couple weeks ago, not even, it's been about a week and a half, yeah, a couple weeks ago. When I pulled this axle out, the grease was like gray, like completely gray. It smelled horrible, looked disgusting. Grease is only, like I said, it only cost me 12 bucks including tax for a big old jug of it. It's right here. So you really don't have any reason not to replace it. It's gonna last you quite a while. You don't need a lot to re-grease the axle. I'll show you how we do that here in a second. So there's no real like specific amount that I could find that you're supposed to put on there. I did a little bit of chatting with a few guys. Basically, the way you decide on how much you put on there, take it, you're gonna dip your finger in this grease. You're gonna put a nice, just do a nice like thick layer above the top right here. Nice thick layer. Okay. All around the top. Alright, see that? Okay. And then do a quick little layer on the middle. You don't need a lot, not as much as the top, probably like half as much, okay? Take your finger, start from the top, and just literally work your way down. Just keep going down with it. Okay. Grab a little bit more. I guess I didn't put enough, to be honest. You do gotta kind of eyeball it. Like I said, there's no specific amount. Basically, you want your axle to be a shade of whatever grease color. So in case this one's green, so I'm gonna want the whole axle to be a green color. So I guess y'all might not be able to see that. We can get that better. Okay. Okay. Take it. You're just gonna wipe, go up and down with it. It is gonna take a little bit more than what I thought, and probably what you're gonna think. So I'll do another thick layer. I wasn't told that you could put too much grease, but I'm sure you can put too much. So like I said, you just want a nice layer of grease. Yeah, I know this probably looks a little weird, right? That's okay though. It's okay. It's all for the bike. You know what? I love her. It's all good. She gets the best. So do a nice layer of grease on there. The whole axle, the whole thing. Okay. So once you can smoothly rub your hand up and down the entire thing without feeling any like friction points, then you're basically good to go. So just lightly rub your hand up and down, nice and even layer, nice and green in my case. This one's gonna be green. Okay. So look at something like that. A nice layer of grease on there. Okay. And this is gonna get messy, so I mean, just suck it up, get over it. So now we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the axle and reinstall the wheel. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe my fingers off because I don't want to get any grease on the wheel, for obvious reasons. I guess you could use the greaser, but that's just more chemicals you're putting on your rear wheel, and I would try and avoid that, to be honest. Okay, so go ahead and clean your hands off. Alright, we're going to go ahead and clean my little area real quick, get everything out from under the bike. And we're going to throw it all together, and hopefully we get it right the first time. Alright guys, so now that I'm back, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the tire. This can be, I don't know what the right word for it. I wouldn't say it's hard. There's just a few moving parts. You just got to make sure you line them all up and try not to drop anything. So the first couple of things is, you remember at the beginning we went ahead and we took out this, like I said, I don't know the right word, I'm gonna call it axle spacer. I did put grease on this as well on the inside and just a splash on the outside, not too much though. So you're gonna want to replace this guy, put him back in the wheel. I'll show you how to do that. Take your wheel, I'm gonna roll it over here, try not to drop anything. Alright, cool. So take this, it just sits right back in there like that. Okay, and the other one as well just goes on the other side. Pretty self-explanatory. Also make sure you didn't get any things on those as well, any debris. If you did, just wipe them off and put a little bit new grease on there. Never hurts to put new grease on things you're already replacing. So let's stick that one back in. Cool. So now you got those back in there. Gonna replace these, put these blocks back in. I don't believe they're directional, but just make sure the flat side goes where your adjusting nuts are. These should just slide right back in there, like that. Same thing for the other side, which I left it on the axle, so you don't have to slide that one back in. So the things you need to pay attention to are going to be, you want to make sure you get your caliper back in its little groove right there. Make sure it's in that groove. And that's really the main thing you need to watch out for. And also line your chain back up where it was. Me, I did mark it, but since I've already done this, I have 2 marks on there. I kind of forgot which one was the right mark, but I'm replacing the chain here in a couple days, so to me, I'm not going to worry about it too much. Just make sure if you have a good chain, put it back where it was, okay? That is a big deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and slide this in there. You are going to have to slide the caliper kind of away from its holding spot like that. Slide the wheel in. I guess roll the wheel in would be the right way to say that. Roll the wheel. Like I said, it is a couple moving steps. Go ahead and bring your caliper back down into that spot. If you can. You're probably going to have to lift the wheel up to get it to clear the rim right there. You are going to have to lift up your wheel to get it in this little zone so you can get it in there right. So the way I'm going to do that is just use my foot. Also, make sure you have your chain. I skipped that step, sorry. Make sure you have your chain on the outside of your swing arm. That way you can put it back over the sprocket. So, just like that. And slide the wheel in. And then go up. There we go. Make sure you get this back in that little groove. Okay. You'll know it's in there if it'll just kind of sit there. It won't fall or anything like that. Make sure your brake pads are still good. You don't want them sliding out, which they look good to me. So we're gonna go ahead and attempt to put this back in there. So we're gonna get the chain on. See if I can find my Sharpie marks. Yeah. Roll it this way. Keep rolling. Alright, so I got a mark right there. Doubt y'all could see that. But just trust me on that. So I got my mark right there. And the mark on the chain should be down here somewhere. Yep, it's gonna be right there. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead, try and line those up the best that I can. Like I said, this is kind of important for the wear on the chain. So kind of just eyeball it at first, and then when you're ready, pick the wheel up and get it on there. So I'm gonna set the top side on there first. Okay, that's where it needs to be. Come in with my foot. See if y'all can see that. Alright, come in with my foot, and I'm just gonna wedge it underneath and go up. Make sure you don't drop the caliper, your brakes. Even though they are in that little channel, they can still, you can bump it hard enough to where it will fall, so just be mindful. Kinda no big deal. There we go. Cool. Try it again. Go up with it. Make sure you're looking at your caliper. Make sure you don't knock it off. And you kind of want to try and get the rotor in between your brake pads. And it's going to be a little difficult since they are new brake pads. It's going to be kind of a tight fit. It's okay. Ain't nothing wrong with it being tight, right? So, okay. Get in there. Get your chain on. Like I said, this can be a little difficult. Okay, got the chain on. We're good. Now I'm gonna worry about making sure I keep the brake pads over the rotor. Once you get that, you're gonna want to slide the axle through. So it's I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's kind of a few things happening at once. So we're gonna get down, kind of lift the wheel up. All right, lift it back up. Make sure you get your rotor in between the brake pads. It's gonna be tight. It's gonna be a little hard. There we go. Okay, so once you get it in there, okay. Like I said, I hold it with my feet. You can probably do it a different way. What you're gonna do next? Take your axle and just shove it in there. There is gonna be a lot of grease that will squeeze out. That's why we put a good amount on there. There's gonna be grease coming out everywhere. Especially right up here. You'll see it start building up, and it's just gonna squeeze all that out. That's why you wanna put a nice thick layer on there. Not too thick, but you know, because a lot of it will come out. So you wanna make sure you have a good amount of grease. So, if you look over here, I'm still holding it with my foot. Get my hand out of the way. Still holding it with my foot. Brake pads are on there. Still looking pretty good. Okay. Make sure this guy is in all the way. And then yeah, you're just gonna slap the axle in there. Literally, just slap it in there. If you're having to use a hammer, you probably did not put enough grease on there, or the wheel is at an angle, so just make sure you're holding it with your foot. If it gets to the point where it kind of stops, just check the other side. Make sure the holes are lined up. Line them up, slap it again. It should just slide right in there, okay? So, slap it in. Okay, here how it stops. It's because the other side isn't lined up all the way, so we'll slide over here. See how it's not lined up right? So we're gonna hold that in there. Bring my light over here. Okay. Just gonna line it up, look at it. Okay, yeah, obviously the axle isn't lined up correctly, so, or the wheel isn't, sorry about that. Just keep hitting it slowly, nice and, there we go. Alright, it's almost there. Pull it up just a little bit more. Slide it in there. There we go. Alright, cool. You don't have to keep this on there, I just do it just in case. Whatever. Alright, so at this point, when you have the axle through, There we go. Cool. So what actually happened is the little block on the other side was getting stuck on the adjusting nut. If that happens, just pull the wheel back and it should slide right in. So be aware of that. I thought it was too much grease, you know. So now that you got that done, we can go ahead, put the rear nut back on. What I like to do before I do that is make sure you have everything on there. So the brake pads look good. Okay. It's nice and centered in the rotor. Make sure your chain's on there. Make sure it's lined up for wear patterns. And that's really it. There's really not too much moving parts, you know, that you got to worry about. So now what we can go ahead and do is put our nut back on there. As soon as I can find it, there it is. Okay, take these two. Don't forget your washer. That on there first. The nut, it does have this little locking mechanism, so be mindful of that. Just hand tighten it first. Get the threads going. You don't want to cross thread it. If you cross thread it, you're buying a new axle. And like I said earlier, the less work, the better, you know. So we're gonna go ahead and get our 32. Do not use an impact to put it on there, okay? Please do not. I do not want anyone thinking that is okay. Go ahead and hand tighten it. And now would be a really good time to check the adjustment on your chain. You already had everything pulled off, you might as well go ahead and do it. I can make another video on how to adjust the chain. It's really simple, to be honest. This video is already gonna be long enough. Like I said, this is my first one, so we're gonna try and get it close to 40 minutes if possible. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So hand tighten it. I like to go ahead and knock the wheel, make sure I have it on those nuts, so I might have to loosen it up just a little bit more. Just make sure it's nice and set on there because you want it to be even. Go ahead and hand tighten it. You want to take a 1/2 inch drive, torque wrench. So the torque on this guy, online it says it's going to be 83 pounds. I'm OCD, and I also don't trust AutoZone torque wrenches for how accurate they are. So I'm going to set it to 85, and we're going to go from there. Last time I did this, 85 worked just fine. I had no issues with it. So I'm going to set it to 85 foot-pounds. Online it says 83 foot-pounds, so that's kind of up to you, honestly. So I'm going to grab that. Oh, weird. Like I said, I don't trust these AutoZone torque wrenches, especially the loaner ones, because you know people do not take care of these. So I set it to 85. Make sure it's on tighten. Set it on there, and just give it a whirl. Okay, clicked. I like to do 2 clicks. Don't go any further. Alrighty, cool. So now you want to make sure that you have the brake pads on there. You want to pump the brakes just to make sure the piston is contacting correctly, the brake pads are contacting correctly. And also, so when you brake the first time, you'll actually brake. Because if you do not pump the brakes, you're not going to stop. At least with the rear brakes. The front ones will still work. But, so what you're going to do is you literally just pump the brakes. Pretty simple. Just pump the brakes. Do it nice and gently. Do not hammer down on it. Just nice and gently pump the brakes. Just a little bit at a time. Once you feel it start to tighten up, then you can give it a nice one. 2, 3, 4. I usually do it about 5 times. That's just my personal. You can do as many times as you want. Just make sure you're getting a nice feel. You don't want it to be loose. So it's pretty nice. You can see the brake pads are contacting nice and flat. So I know when I hit my brakes, I'm going to stop. Cool. And I think that's going to be it for today, guys. So hope y'all enjoyed my video. Like I said, this is my first video. I'm going to be working on making some more. hopefully soon. We'll kind of see how it plays out. I am kind of broke, so I don't have enough money to just go replacing everything on this bike, just kind of the essentials. And yeah, so go ahead and let me know how I did, guys. If this helped you out, just leave a like on the video. You can subscribe if you want to be honest. I don't plan on being like a vlog channel, so it's probably not going to be too interesting to subscribe. But I do plan on adding future, you know, maintenance videos, not only on bikes, on cars as well. I am an auto technician. I'm going to UTI Dallas. Actually, I just recently graduated UTI Dallas, like last weekend. So hopefully when I get out there in the field and everything, once this whole pandemic kind of dies off or goes away, I'll be able to get a nice, you know, job. Going to school to be a BMW tech as further education, so hopefully, fingers crossed, sometime in September I should be in a dealership for a BMW. So that's kind of like what I'm looking forward to. I will be doing maintenance videos if I can and when I can. So yeah, just let me know how I did today. I apologize if the video wasn't that great. I am using a Hero 3 GoPro. That's really all I got. Now it's starting to get awkward, so yeah, y'all take it easy. If there's anything I missed, if there's anything y'all want me to do, let me know and I'll see what we can do about that video, okay? I will be uploading a how to change his oil pretty soon. I just didn't want to make this video 2 hours long.